long or short. So these ones are longer, which I prefer. So you basically, you fit it over the end of the column and then you compression fit it, and then it basically tightens around the outside of it and it seals. So if it's longer, it has more to compress, so it won't break as easily. So hopefully these will work. Ooh, that's bright. Okay, so this is gonna be easy because everything's already off. And then this can just go in the trash. Okay, so these are actually helpful that these are here, because now I have to get these ferrules out, because these old ones I don't want to use. I want to use the new ones. So this is easy to do if you have a piece of old column. I can just use this. So basically just put it in there. So it should look like that.
Okay.
Make sure that you don't have any dust particles in there or anything. Maybe this will work this way too. No. Now we can throw it away. I'm gonna take this Scepter out, and I'm also gonna check the rest of this section just to make sure that it's good, because like normally you don't want to take it apart, but since we're already going to be replacing the column, it's a good idea to service the inlet at the same time. Okay, so here's the column, and here's the scoring wafer. So there's two ways you can cut a column. So you can either cut it with this wafer, or you can cut it with this like basically like tube cutter. This way is better because then you won't close the end of the column off. Okay, here's the certificate of analysis. You can keep that. And then here is our column. Okay, so this one has a 0.53 millimeter guard column and a 0.32 millimeter like other column. So basically you need to make sure that you use the right side, because otherwise it like won't fit properly. So luckily Restech is super cool and they label everything. So this side says inlet. Okay. So that makes that a little easier when you're doing it. Plus it's actually kind of obvious because it's like significantly fatter. I'm just gonna, okay, that's fine. We'll just make that work. I'm gonna go ahead and, so I'm looking for this, and then I wanna see how this looks. So if this looks like it's like pretty dirty, then I would clean this. And maybe like put some methanol through it or something, but I don't really see anything. I'm gonna go ahead and like poke a piece of column through it to make sure that it looks clean. Okay. Okay, so that looks fine. This really wouldn't be a problem unless you were doing something that's like really dirty. So since you're mostly just doing finished biodiesel, then it won't be a problem. Pull this back out. So the order that it goes in is that piece, the spring, and then you put a new Scepter into the head, and then you shut it. If it has to be in that order because that's how it's able to seal. So this one's nice because it has a pre-cut hole in it on both sides. So you don't have to worry about it, about what side it goes in. So you're just gonna put it in here, and then make sure it's sitting flat. And then all you do is just stick it on top. Actually, yeah. Okay. I put the column in there too high, so then it pushed the spring up. So now it's good. So this just needs to be finger tight. If we find there's a leak, then we'll tighten it more, but you really, most things here you want to do pretty much finger tight. So it's just easier. So I'm gonna leave this tower off for now. And now we're gonna start the fun part. Wanna do upside down. So therefore you don't get anything inside of it. These two are the exact same, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. So I basically just put it here so then that gets out of my way. So now this is nice because it basically this should just turn. So see, there's just a hole there. So you just flip it out. And so the way that this should sit is, I think it should be the short end up. This you definitely have to put down, you have to put upside down, because if you do it upside, then if you, like let's say that you graze the inside of this, then any particles will fall inside of the column. So you'll just put that there and then tap it. You tap it so then if anything like got onto the column, it'll fly off instead of going inside. So it's just an extra protection. I mean, if you want to be like really anal about it, then you would do this part upside down too, but I'm not really too worried about it. So now I'm gonna cut off about this much. So this is a little bit of an art. So you basically just want to take it and then score it at a 45-degree angle, and preferably you'll only have to do this once. You want to score it deep enough to where it'll cut, but not too deep that it'll cut through. So, and then if you didn't think that was deep enough, then you'll do it again. Because really, if you do it correctly, it should just it should just break like that. So if I don't know how far you can zoom in, but if you look on this, that actually didn't break super well because it has a little bit of a burr on it. So I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it on a different edge this time. Maybe it'll be a little bit nicer to me. So another thing that you can do is if you are worried that it's going to like break unevenly, is you can support it with a pair of tweezers or with a pair of pliers. So if you have a pair of like pliers, you can hold it against the end of it, and then when you break it, it won't like curve the end of it, because you want the end of it to be flat. So break away, then towards you. Okay, that's better. I mean, also, if you're like really worried about it, what you could do, magnifying loupe, you can use this. If this is uncomfortable for you to use, you can also just feel free to use your phone camera. Anyway, it looks flat, so it's fine. So this is the most important part of the whole process. Okay. So you want to make sure that this part is straight. So you're basically going to mess with this until it is as straight as humanly possible. Because basically the way that on column works is the needle goes into the top of the column. So if it's not straight, it will break your needle. So this part is very, very important. This is the part that either takes forever or takes no time at all. So you basically just kind of have to like take your fingers like however you feel, and then basically just like pull it up and to like straighten it. I mean, really the most important part is the top. So like it's still like a tiny, tiny bit wavy. This type of GC is a little bit more forgiving in comparison to others. Good to make sure that it is as perfect as possible, because you want it to be straight in all views. See how it has those ridges? That's good if you want to grip something, but when you're messing with a column, you don't really want that. So it's nice if it has a flat edge like this. So I'm gonna use this. Okay, so if you're worried about it not being as flat as you want it, so like if you look at it, the tip of that is like slightly bent. So you basically just take this and then very lightly bend it. Don't put too much pressure on it because then you're gonna seal the end of it. So you're putting very, very light pressure on it. Okay, I call that pretty good. So now, you'll take this into here. So you basically kind of just have to like feel for the hole because it's, when you're installing a column, you want to make sure that you're not creating like a really tight loop. So like whenever you do this, you want to, I mean, really preferably it would just be loop, loop, straight up, loop, loop, straight up. So if you need to adjust the column onto the thing, that's fine. So I just kind of arbitrarily put it on there. So once we actually like put it, then we can like reposition it. Remember that spring that we put in there? Mm-hmm. You basically want to push it up in there until the spring starts to compress. And then you basically compress it a little bit and then you put it on. So do you want to feel it? You can touch it with your bare hands, it's fine. So see, it compresses a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you're basically going to push it up in there, compress it, and then you'll take this and then tighten it. Okay, so that's actually good that it's already sealing a little bit. Okay, so now all you have to do with this is tighten it a quarter turn. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to overdo it because if you, so preferably when you tug on it, it should not move. Like if you really pull on it, it'll move, but that's good. Okay, so now I'm gonna position this in a better fashion so it doesn't put as much stress on it. So that's good. Okay, so now we're gonna look for the other end. So Restec is really nice and they tap both sides. So it's very easy to find the other end, because then if you ever need to store a column, you can, but it's not, you don't have to. Okay, so I'm gonna take like a pretty big chunk out. And remember, this is a metal column, so be careful. And it's actually also a little bit ironic because when I graduated, I was like, metal columns are not normal. The normal in GC world is glass. So this is actually very rare.
Okay.
So nice skill to have. So we're basically gonna do the same thing. This side is a little bit more finicky. So you don't have to have it as straight, but you also don't want it bending because basically when it goes through the column, it's gonna go into the FID. So it's basically going into a fire. And so you want the flow into the fire. If it goes into the fire, you want it to be straight, because if it's like this and then it's like going into the wall of the jet, then it'll possibly just like not be as sensitive. So it's not like as absolutely important to have it razor straight, but you want it to be as straight as possible. Okay, so for this one, we're gonna use the smaller one. So for the other one, we use the 0.8, this one's 0.5. So that last one that we used was pure graphite. Mm-hmm. So graphite's nice because it's really compressible. This one's made out of Vespel graphite. I don't really know what Vespel is, but it's a thing. Okay, so same thing. You want to do it down, and then you want the cone to be facing up. And you want to do the same thing where you're going to cut it. Now this column is a lot thinner, so this will be a lot easier to cut. I'm going to cut about, I think that's about 6 inches off. So this one's going to be a lot easier to cut through, so don't apply as much force. Okay, so this is what I mean by using this. So you basically just take this and you put it right below the cut so it supports it, and then you go just like that. So see, that one's very smooth. My eyesight's good enough that I can do that. If your eyesight is not good enough to do that, please use some kind of magnifying device. Okay, so this one you also want straight. Again, it's not as important, but you want it to go into the FID as easily as possible. Because this one, you're actually going to put up until you feel a stop, and then you're basically going to pull it back 1/4 of an inch. Which is not 1/4 of an inch. Like I think the specific guide is like 3 millimeters, which I don't know how the hell you're supposed to like do that. But you basically just kind of eyeball it. You don't want the thing to go directly into the jet. You want it just below the jet. Okay, that's pretty good. So here comes the fun part. This part's fun because you actually have to like really maneuver it. I'm gonna cut more off because this is gonna be too much column. Because again, you want it to like loop right at the cut, I guess. And then just like that. Again, you don't want to put too much pressure because if you actually like really put pressure on it, you'll seal it. And then make sure you don't cover those holes. Okay, so that's good. So now we're gonna straighten that again. See, this side of the column is significantly more fragile than the other one. So just be careful with how you move it. You basically want to finagle this in here. There's the stop. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to pull this in here, and I'm going to tighten this to where it at least has like a tiny bit of give. Okay, I'm gonna tighten this a little bit. Okay, so you put it in here and then you pull it out just like a tiny bit. And now we're gonna tighten it. Okay, so now it should, yeah, okay, that's good. Is the program on? Okay, so exit out of the software. Give me a second. Now it should be happy. Okay. Okay, so, all right, so this is good. This means that it's holding pressure. So I'm gonna set this to 20. If you want this detector to be obvious, you want to turn it up really high, because then it will be very obvious that you have a leak. So now I'm going to go ahead and touch everything. So I'm going to pull this far away so then this doesn't get contaminated.